So, kid, you want to get rich? There ain't no better way to make it big than as a mercenary. You think that guy with the crown was really God's idea of who should have all the gold? Forget about it. His great-great-grandfather started out as some schmuck swinging a sword. Wealth, real wealth in this feudal world of ours, starts with war. You listen to me, and I'll teach you how to work the angle and make it all the way to the very top.
It's a racket, pure and simple. All over Europe, the kings and princes need highly trained, well-armed soldiers, but they don't have the cash to keep a standing army. So that's where we come in. We operate in a high-risk, high-mortality market, but at the end of the day, it's about overhead, squeezing your margins, and having a watertight contract. If you want to survive and thrive, you got to look at warfare like an accountant looks at a ledger. Now, you could start out as a regular foot soldier, possibly a man-at-arms, or maybe even a knight. It don't matter, kid, 'cause let me tell you, doing the fighting is a mug's game. You're pulling in maybe 2 to 2.5 florins a month. Now, to a kid milking cows on a farm, that sounds like a nice bump in pay, maybe even double what you'd make back home. Here's the catch. You gotta buy your own gear. Even a decent halberd and a solid set of leather armor could easily cost a year's pay or more. On top of that, the bosses are to dock your pay directly for your daily bread, meat, and wine before you even see the coin.
You will live and march as part of the massive baggage train and mobile camp community that follows in the wake of every army. This moving city includes sutlers, merchants, blacksmiths, women, and children, all of whom you will inevitably spend your remaining coins on. The sutlers sell tastier food, better alcohol, and replacement clothing, often at price-gouged rates designed to extract your wages. Even though you earn more than the peasant, you might end your campaign with nothing but the clothes on your back if you don't manage your coppers carefully. However, if you're lucky, you might supplement your wages with plunder. The golden rule of thumb for the common soldier is that if you can pick it up and carry it away, it's yours to keep. If you survive the infantry, maybe grab some loot. You move up to the heavy cavalry. You ride with a tactical squad called a lance, which is usually you as the arm at night, a squire to watch your back, a page to handle your gear, and a couple of mounted archers. At this level, your pay jumps to maybe 15 florins a month, but your expenses go right through the roof. A top-tier warhorse could be a whole year's wages for your knight-turned-mercenary. You get that horse clipped out from under you, you're bankrupt. Luckily, the union got us a thing called restauro equorum, basically horse insurance. The state officially assesses the value of your horse at the muster, and they agree to compensate you if it gets whacked on the job. That's the grunt life. You're a subcontractor, managing a small crew, trying to build up capital. But the real money, kid, is in the management, running the whole company as a general contractor, a condottiere. When you reach this height, you ain't just swinging a sword, you're running a private corporation. You sell your services to a city-state, a powerful lord, or even the Pope himself. The foundation of this enterprise is the condotta, a highly detailed legal contract that spells out exactly how many guys you're bringing, what they're wearing, how much you get paid, and how the spoils get divided. The terms are strict. You sign on for a firma, which is a fixed period of active duty, usually lasting 2 to 6 months, so the employer can keep their budget flexible. After that, you enter the aspetto, a waiting period. They put you on a reduced retainer while the suits in the Senate figure out if they want to renew your services for another season.
Let's talk numbers, 'cause running a mercenary company is exactly like running any other business, and you gotta know the math. Let's say you hustle your way into a sweet, modest-sized contract with Florins, kind of like the setup Francesco II of Gonzaga had. You're providing a tight, elite crew of 250 men. The city agrees to pay you 33,000 florins a year for the whole package. That breaks down to a gross revenue of 2,750 florins a month.
Now let's look at your payroll expenses. Out of those 250 guys, maybe you got 50 heavy hitters, your men-at-arms. At 15 florins a head, that's 750 florins a month. The other 200 are your foot soldiers, archers, and squires. Averaging them out at 3 florins a head, that's another 600. So your monthly payroll is 1,350 florins. Subtract that from your 2,750 revenue, and you got a gross profit of 1,400 florins a month. Now, to a kid from the village, clearing 1,400 florins a month sounds like you're going to be eating veal every night. But you ain't factored in the overhead, the risks, and the sheer logistical nightmare of keeping those guys in the field. The biggest headache you're going to have as a boss is the logistical overhead. Moving an army of 10,000 or 20,000 men is like relocating a mid-sized city. To feed a lean army of 19,200 fighting men requires a staggering 61,850 kilograms, over 68 tons of food every single day. And you ain't just feeding the shooters. You got to account for the mouths calculation. For every guy holding a pike, you got a non-combatant in the baggage train. This is a massive mobile camp community that follows the army, packed with sutlers, merchants, blacksmiths, laundresses, women and children. You even got a kambanak or supalegamus, an officer specifically appointed just to oversee the camp women and prostitutes. Every single guy needs a daily ration of about 1.5 to 2 kilos of bread, a kilo of meat, a generous pour of wine, and you need ample oats and hay for the mules and war horses. You can't just pile 68 tons of grub on a bunch of wagons in Florence and drive them to the front. We call it the tyranny of the wagon equation. If the journey's too long, the horses or oxen pulling the supply carts will eat the very grain they're hauling before they even get halfway there. Adding more wagons eventually provides zero extra range. So you got to establish complex supply lines to store supplies, arrangements with local merchants, cut deals with whole cities. Or, of course, the easy way is you resort to foraging and living off the land. You got the sword, you make the rules. And the first rule is your army get fed no matter what. Capiche?
So how do you actually clear a profit and protect that margin? You squeeze the edges and work the hustle. First off, you never start without capital. You demand a prestanza, an upfront advance payment from the state amounting to 1/3 or even 1/2 of the total contract value. You need that liquid cash to recruit and equip your boys before the campaign even starts. But these city-states, kid, they're notoriously slow payers. They'll stiff you in a heartbeat. When the treasury dries up and your invoices are past due, you gotta leverage your personal reputation. You go to the big merchant bankers, guys like the Fugas of Augsburg or Hans de Witt, and you secure massive private loans using your future contract payments or anticipated war taxes as collateral just to keep your company afloat. You're orchestrating the movement of vast quantities of gunpowder, cast iron cannons, and grain across Europe through international merchant networks. You become a veritable prince of industry, where the industry simply happens to be war. Then you act as the middleman for supplies. When the state provides you with bulk provisions, you sell the bread, meat, and wine back to your own soldiers at a markup. You deduct the cost from their wages before the coins ever touch their hands. The sutlers in the camp sell replacement clothing and tastier alcohol at price gouge rates designed to extract whatever wages the men have left. But you gotta watch your back for the feds, the collaterale. These are government orders the state sends out to conduct frequent unannounced inspections of your muster rolls. See, every captain worth his salt tries to pad the payroll with phantom soldiers, guys who don't exist except on paper, so you can pocket their wages. The auditors are there to ensure you ain't committing payroll fraud or presenting men with substandard tin can armor. If they catch you falling short of your promised furnished numbers, the state will aggressively dock the difference from your next payment.
It's a constant, tense game of cat and mouse between you trying to maximize your profit margins and the state trying to get exactly the military force it paid for. And what happens when the state flat out stops paying you? You can't let the boys go hungry or they'll mutiny, because your soldiers are independent subcontractors who own their own arms and horses. They'll simply pack up and desert you, or worse, sell their services to the enemy if they feel their business interests are being compromised by your poor management. To prevent that, you set up parties. That's our word for a protection racket. You politely explain to the local villages and the countryside that they need to pay you a ransom, protection money, or your boys are going to live off their land and pillage them to the ground. You become the local tax collector. This ensures your men stay fed and your pockets remain lined even when your official employer fails to honor their financial obligations.
Now let's talk about battlefield strategy and the ultimate fringe benefit, the loot. Because you've invested so much capital in raising and equipping your company, your entire approach to fighting changes. You do not go looking for bloody, decisive battles of annihilation. Those are foolish risks that can destroy your expensive assets, your veteran men, and your costly war horses, and leave you entirely bankrupt. Instead, you fight smart. You focus on outmaneuvering your opponent, laying sieges, capturing strategic positions, and cutting off enemy supply lines. Battles are calculated business risks aimed at gaining diplomatic advantages and forcing profitable negotiations, not reckless, heroic slaughter. You capture an enemy knight or a rival captain, he's worth his weight in gold. You ransom him back to his family or his employer, sharing the profits with the men who captured him. We condottieri are part of an exclusive fraternity. We might be bitter enemies on the field today, but tomorrow we might serve the very same master. Therefore, we treat captured officers with professional leniency. We often disarm the common soldiers and turn them loose, while we extract our true wealth from ransoming the civilian populations. And if you get the green light to plunder a city, the golden rule for the common soldier is if you can pick it up and carry it away, it's yours. When guys like Aldringen and Gallus sacked the city of Mantua, they walked away with a palace full of goods estimated at a staggering 18 million florins. But don't think it's just a smash and grab free for all. We run a tight ship. The employer gets to keep the captured real estate, but the portable property goes to the condottieri and his crew. The loot gets divided up into predetermined shares based on a guy's rank and the specific job he does for the company. The officers and color bearers get the VIP cut naturally. In fact, if a captain ain't clearing at least 30,000 florins from loot on a campaign, he's a certified moron. And how do you turn a stolen silver candlestick into cold hard cash on the march? We got sutlers and merchants following the baggage train, whacked as receivers, fencing the plundered goods right on the spot. It's a beautiful cash-in-hand economy.
If you play the game right, possess unshakable charisma, and have a sharp head for international finance, you can truly make it big and cash out. Take the legendary Englishman, Sir John Hawkwood. He spent 3 decades working the Italian market, and his earnings from his military contracts alone ranged between 6,000 and 80,000 florins a year. Add in the massive sums he made from bribes, ransoms, and looting, and he possessed wealth that completely dwarfed the treasuries of small nations. He earned thousands of times what a skilled craftsman could make in a lifetime. What does a successful retirement look like? For most top-tier captains, the ultimate goal is to transition from a mercenary contractor to the landed aristocracy. You use your vast fortunes to purchase grand estates and noble titles, transforming your blood-won gold into generational prestige. Look at Bartolomeo Colleone. Venice gave him a massive salary and named him Captain General for life just to keep him loyal. He took that cash, retired to a massive castle at Malpaga, and played the gentleman farmer, introducing agricultural innovations and commissioning incredible works of art to secure his legacy. He died an honorable, fabulously wealthy man in his own bed. And if you got real ambition and rootlessness, you pull a Francesco Sforza. He inherited his father's mercenary company, expertly played the warring Italian powers against one another, and married the daughter of a Duke of Milan. When the Duke died and the city plunged into chaos, Sforza didn't wait for a contract. He used his formidable army to besiege the city and ultimately forced the Senate to recognize him as the new Duke of Milan. He transformed himself from a hired sword into the founder of a royal dynasty, a sovereign prince ruling one of the wealthiest states in all of Europe. So, kid, that's the business of war. It is fraught with the constant perils of bankruptcy, disease, and violent death. But if you have the meticulous mind of an accountant, the charisma of a leader, the steadfast courage of a soldier, and the cold calculation of a banker, there are no limits to how high you can rise. Arm yourself well, keep your overhead low, squeeze your margins, watch your supply lines, and never, ever fight for free. Capiche?
By the way, kid, you want to know more about how to make a buck at some time in the past? Just smash that subscribe button, and you can check out my other guides. Oh, if you don't mind, give a guy a like, 'cause you know it really helps.